Respected faculties and distinguished guests, welcome to our today's workshop. We are very much delighted to be here, and it's our great pleasure to invite you all to the workshop on Faculty Development Program titled Outcome-Based Education Curriculum. Today in this webinar, we do have among us Professor Dr. Anwar Hossain, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Northern University, Bangladesh, the research person, Dr. S.M. Kabir, Professor, Department of Marketing, University of Rajshahi, and Member, Bangladesh Accreditation Council, Bangladesh. Professor Dr. Nazrul Islam, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Northern University, Bangladesh, is also present in this workshop. To begin the session, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Anwar Hossain, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Northern University, Bangladesh, to offer his address and inaugurate the workshop. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tapas Ranjan Shankar. Honorable guest speaker of this evening, Professor S.M. Kabir, Honorable Member of the Accreditation Council, Professor Dr. Nazrul Islam, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Northern University Bangladesh and Dean of Business Faculty, Northern University Bangladesh, my colleagues, Honorable Professor Shardar Mahmood, Faculty and Head of the Department of Public Health Department, and also many more. I see a lot of almost how many? 82 colleagues are already here, and I'm really glad and appreciate the urge to develop yourselves that you have come and joined this program to listen to a very learned scholar who will be talking about your issues, because we understand that the process of accreditation is a tough one, and the outcome-based education is a new concept that has emerged over the years in order to, what I must say as a student management, to pinpoint on the strategic thinking of the educationist. Normally, as an educationist, we used to possibly teach in a haphazard way, in a disjointed way, and losing the connectivity of each chapter of education to the cascading goals that we have all in common is to serve the motherland and the country. And through this process of outcome-based education, we now can relate all our efforts, all our studies, all our teaching techniques to gear to the national goals and objectives. And from there, we can come down to the university level, macro level of goals and objectives, and then relate to your department and subject and discipline. And this process of outcome-based education, which will link each lesson that you plan for your students to the overall broader goals and objectives, and ultimately linking it to the overall national development, human resource development, and other issues. I think ICAC can play a very good role in this aspect. And Accreditation Council, Bangladesh Accreditation Council, BAC, is also a very important organization that is going to come up, which will be documenting all our efforts and also our ranking in this process of outcome-based education. I would like to congratulate Professor Nazrul Islam for organizing this particular session for faculty development, also to bring home to our doorstep the process of outcome-based education. I'd also like to thank our guest speaker and expert of tonight, Professor S.M. Kabir, and his expertise will also help us in this process to develop our university, our curriculum, our faculty for the 21st century education system that we all trying to achieve. You know, this is a very competitive world, and every university is trying to develop their excellence, their level of competence. We will be failing in our duty if we cannot go for our own development, self-enhancement, self-reaching and enriching. And only that will be able to inculcate it to our students, who will try to definitely be a country where the development process will continue on and on. I won't take much more of your time because we are all eagerly waiting to listen from our guest speaker, Professor S.M. Kabir, whose expertise will greatly influence us and also enhance our knowledge and understanding of the concept. And with these few words, I once again welcome Professor Kabir in our midst and expect that all of our faculty members will listen to him with rapt attention so that we can benefit from his discussion and delivery. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Nuzul and the Business School for providing this opportunity for me to come and speak in this very wise gathering and a great platform of learning. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you, sir, for your well-organized speech. The moment is now for our honorable resource person, Dr. S.M. Kabir. Dr. Kabir does have 20 years of teaching experience in the field of marketing. His resourceful studies and articles on Sikh industry rehabilitation in textile sector, strategic marketing, consumer behavior, and so on are available in reputed journals. Currently, he is working as a member of Bangladesh Accreditational Council, in short, BSc. Besides, Dr. Kabir is an active member of Higher Education Quality Enhancement Project, UGC, under Ministry of Education. Sir, we are eagerly waiting to listen to you regarding today's session on outcome-based education curriculum. So please welcome Professor Dr. Kabir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Can you please allow to share my screen?
Yes, sir, you can, sir.
Mr. Taposh, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Okay. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, Amir Anwar Chaudhary, my good friend, Professor Nazrul Islam, dear colleagues, Assalamu alaikum. It's really a very good opportunity for me to interact with the colleagues of Northern University. But at the very outset, I must clear the way you presented me as an expert, I never felt in that way. Actually, I'm working on quality assurance. I have a little experience on curricula, and I'm sharing people who want that. That's it. Overview of the session, if you allow me to talk on the topics, first, urgency of transformation. You can understand we, the academics here, many senior colleagues are also here, and we have the universities for a long time, and we have our curricula. But why this time? We are trying to change that. We have transformed that, as our Honorable Vice Chancellors mentioned. We need to connect our teaching, learning, and the study programs with the national objectives. We first need to understand the urgency of such transformation, because if we are not convinced, nothing will happen. Secondly, if we want to transform, particularly the curricula, today we are going to talk and share, there are some standard good practices. The job must be done maintaining those good practices. Of course, today we will share the outcome-based curriculum and review process with a special focus on the template of University Grants Commission. And of course, we look into the alignment of post-learning outcomes, teaching learning strategies, and assessment tools and techniques. The learning outcomes, hopefully, will be for the participants who are attending this session today and tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Ability to identify the needs to be addressed in designing the curricula, very important. We call it outcome-based, actually it's need-based. If you don't understand the needs, you won't be able to define the learning outcomes of your curriculum. Secondly, we will have the ability to define the learning outcomes. How to define learning outcomes? There are some rules, norms in quality assurance. We must follow that. Thirdly, ability to design the outcome-based curricula following University Grants Commission, the template recently served, the revised one I'm talking about. And finally, we will be able to evaluate the effectiveness of our courses and the curricula. In what sense these are effective, what other things we can do to improve the things further. That will be the learning outcomes. But before, I would like to remind and draw attention of my colleagues, you understand. I'm talking here, we are not going to sing and dance. We have no musical instrument, and very especially, my voice is not melody. So the session never gonna be very pleasing and interesting to many of us. Only if you can understand the significance, importance, urgency of the subject we are going to talk, then it may be interesting to you. And we don't always need to understand what we are sharing and talking. Everybody concerned with the teaching learning at the tertiary level must understand and must work to achieve the goals and follow the norms of University Grants Commission and Bangladesh Accreditation Council. That's why, with sincere efforts and attention, to make the session productive is very, very important. After discussion we will make today, I will try to give you a little exercise that you will do overnight and tomorrow. And hopefully through the IQAC director, you will submit that, and IQAC director will send it to me so that I can look into the preparation and give you a little feedback on the second day when we will meet again. If you agree, then hopefully the session will be productive. Otherwise, simply I will talk, you will listen, nothing will happen. So first, other point I would like to share with you, the preparation I have to share with you is not owned everything by me. So I must acknowledge first, I have gone through a good number of books, reports, YouTube, quality assurance documents of many countries to prepare the presentation we have today. So I must recognize and acknowledge their contribution in developing my mindset and conceptual development on the subject. To refresh our colleagues, we must be flexible enough because we are the academics and many of us are working in the field of academia for a long period of time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, even more. But we need to understand what currently we are doing that has to be critically evaluated. And we need to identify the areas may be improved. And logically, we should think how we can improve the system further. If you don't critically review our presentation, we never feel the urgency of changing our preparation, mindset, and style. So refine your thinking and current practices as long as it is improving the system and quality of education. That's why I said, if you do not work properly, then it will be simply NATO, no action, talk only. We don't want to make the session in that way because your time has value and you are really spending your valuable insights and time. And we must get something out of that investment. Otherwise, it will be natural, as I mentioned. First of all, let's start with this great statement. What actually education means. It's too old, but it's still very valid in the current setting. Education is knowledge, skills, and attitude about a discipline that engages the learners in the collaborative process of effective learning. The curricular academic preparation we will have actually will focus on that particular area. And we, the faculty members, look at the indication, what should be the behavior and attitude we must have when we will deal with the matters related to learning. Since we are specially assigned today to talk with the curricula, first we need to look at what curricula actually refers. I know many of you are quite aware about that, maybe you are knowledgeable, but to remind many of our colleagues who may not be very familiar with the concept, curriculum is a planned educational experience in a discipline for a very specific period of time for desired academic and professional development. This desired academic and professional development actually refers program objectives and program learning outcomes, which in effect will fulfill the requirements for the degree you are offering. Now the question is, we have the curricula. As I mentioned, over the years, we are practicing, maybe name is different, we traditionally use the term syllabi. Now, why we need to change it into outcome-based? That means why the transformation? We need to understand the urgency, logic, and importance. To make that important to you, I'm just simply sharing a few points. Many of we may be aware, even our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir mentioned, to connect higher education with the national goals and objectives. That's all about here. Look at here, the emerging concerns, globalization. It started journey, still going on. We like it or not, it is on the process. So better, we must get ready to adapt with the requirements of globalization and the challenges and the opportunities we have to face and make use of those for the greater interest of our society, country, and community. Secondly, if you look at around, there are some continuous and discontinuous changes. In quality assurance, we call it skill mismatch. The industry requirements, the term we use industry is actually the area, place, where our graduates are going after graduation to make use of their academic learnings in professional field. So it's a very broad term. So the requirements of these stakeholders are changing frequently. But the preparation of educational institutions, we are not changing ourselves that much. So resulted in skill mismatch. Our responsibility is to minimize the gap. Thirdly, if you look at the economic development and SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. In the context of Bangladesh, in recent past, government initiated a lot of economic projects, economic development things are already progressing. Some are in the planning stage, and we have to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. Education is the key. Quality education is the key. Colleagues who are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, you can look into the goals number 4, quality education. That is connected with other goals. It is internationally highly recognized that without quality education, the other goals cannot be achieved in a sequential or in a significant or acceptable manner. And that's why first we have to look at the quality education. If you can make our education quality, achievement of other sustainable goals will be a lot easier for you, and that will be really sustainable in true sense. The other things came in the map is qualifications framework. We didn't have before, but recently government approved the document for higher education. And there are some provisions in the qualification framework which government made mandatory for all the higher education programs and institutes. So we have no option. We have to adapt those. We have to maintain those in our program management and educational process. Very importantly, fourth, industrial regulation. Few months, couple of years back, we are talking about industrial revolution, and we said fourth industrial revolution is knocking at our door. But now it's not knocking anyway. We are already in the industrial revolution. And Bangladesh and some other countries, they are asking universities, are you ready to produce the graduates people need in the face of industrial revolution fourth, and a lot of changes will be there, which are very discontinuous changes, which may disrupt the existing system. And again, we have the opportunities in transnational education and cross-border education. If we look at in last 10, 15 years, internationalization of higher education increased significantly. And mobility of students become very important right at this time. Many Bangladeshi students are going abroad every year for higher education. When they are moving out, they're taking money from Bangladesh. So it's economics of higher education. In the age of globalization, people will go and people will come. That's the point. But if you look into the higher education, our students are moving out, but very less are coming in. So that's creating another imbalance in our higher education scenario. To match with the requirements of international students community, to make our higher education attractive to them, we must look into our academic preparation, our curricula, so that we can have something to serve the purposes of international students. These are the basic things that's pushing us to think we need to transform, we need to change our curricula, we need to change our academic preparation. Now, the emerging concerns I was talking about briefly, that concerns created a few emerging needs. The first one is new values and new approaches in higher education, new ways of delivering education. The way we deliver traditionally, that's no longer valid and acceptable and effective. So we have to think how we can make it more effective. And we need to prepare our graduates, other way, competent to face the challenges in 21st century. Knowledge, skills, and attitude. The first word I mentioned before at the outset of our discussion today. And this thing is a very continuous thing. We call it PDCA cycle. You have to plan, you have to implement, you have to check what is improving, what the problems are, and then accordingly you have to change it. So it's a continuous process. In quality assurance, we call it PDCA cycle. Now, when we are talking about curricula, it has four components, we can say. First one is planned curricula, meaning the thing we are trying to do and we will discuss today. Part of that will be taught. And some issues are there that we can call hidden curricula. It refers the culture of the university, culture of the department or program offering entity. Out of all these things, what students can learn in terms of program learning outcomes and course learning outcomes, that is learned curricula. That actually will be with them when they will get out of the university, when they will be graduated. So we must focus on this green area. And this green area, to develop that one, we have some suggestions in the UGC template and quality assurance. Hopefully, we'll share those things today. Now, each and every university, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Deans, and Heads are present here. You must think each and every university and program offering entity must have a process of competence development for their students. We define that one as input-output process. Input, right intake, right faculty, need-based curricula, adequate physical facilities. Today, we are not talking too much on other three. We simply will confine our discussion with need-based curriculum, or other word, outcome-based curriculum. And little on the process, I mean the teaching, learning, and assessment strategies, so that we can ensure the output desired competence in our students with hard and soft skills. Now, before developing the curriculum, a lot of preparations we must have. Directly, we should not go for developing the curriculum. And that might create problem to understand the logic of doing something in the process of curricular design. That's why I would like to request my colleague to understand the basic first. Then we'll go to the UGC template. After talking about this foundation and basic, we will allow our colleagues to ask questions maybe 5 to 10 minutes, because since we are not in a position to give you too many exercises, because this is very online and we are not habituated with online exercises. So we will try to make interactive discussion as much as possible. After a few minutes, I will allow you to ask me question. If you need any clarification, please don't hesitate, so that we can go for a little extended discussion of that point. When we will talk about curricular designing, a few pertinent questions will be there. Look at here. What will be the program? Very first question. We established one university, created a department. Department is going to offer something. Then the question is, what program we will go for? Second one, what sort of graduates do you want? Meaning, what sort of graduates? Meaning graduates' characteristics. We call it attributes. What will be the characteristics of our graduates in terms of qualifications, in terms of skills, in terms of attitude? And then how will we reflect the needs of the stakeholders? Meaning there should be a matching. The graduates' attributes and the needs of the stakeholders, if does not match, then the graduate will never find a very suitable place to make use of their learning or the characteristics or qualifications they will have. We must make a good fit. How can you maintain international compatibility? Remember, we are living in a very globalized village. We cannot do anything isolatedly. We must maintain the parity, compatibility with the international community with similar qualifications and discipline. So where we can look into that? We have our own agenda. Our country have their own demand. At the same time, we must make sure our graduates have the mobility in terms of higher study abroad or in terms of working with international people. What outcomes and content should we include? If so, now the question is, what will be in the curricula in terms of outcomes and content? Content is not course content, it's the curriculum content. I will talk about that one in right time. What teaching and learning methods should we use? We will have the learning outcomes. Following that one, what teaching and learning methods should we use? Because attainment of CLOs mostly depend on appropriateness of your teaching learning method. All teaching learning method not necessarily applicable, suitable, appropriate for all kinds of learning outcomes. So we need to understand as a teaching faculty which teaching, learning, and assessment method will be appropriate for particular course learning outcome. And the last one, after going through this process with an interval of 4 or 5 years, even some cases at the end of semester, we must evaluate the effectiveness of our curriculum so that we can improve it further. As I mentioned, it's a PDCL cycle. Plan, do, and then review, and then change and make something adjustment with the changing infrastructure, changing requirements of stakeholders, so that always our curriculum will be effective in contemporary sense. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning, we will have some good practices that has to be maintained in designing the curricula. Then I'll talk about this one right now. Look at here. It's the procedure. We have that. In universities, we have that. But why I'm talking about this one? To involve all our faculty members and stakeholders in the process of curricular design. The current practice we know. Some of our faculty members are developing the curricula. Majority of our faculty and students, alumni, they have nothing to say about the curriculum. But actually, good practice is engagement, involvement. Look at here. If you are not new, if it is a very new program, new curricula, new department, maybe you don't have the students. But if you have already some students, you are making adjustment, changing, review your curricula, then you must have the opinion of your existing students. Secondly, alumni. If you have alumni, I mean, students are already graduated, they're working somewhere, we must have their feedback. Employers and other stakeholders. Good number of stakeholders. I'll try to make that in details, maybe after a few minutes. This is simply need assessment. This part will be handled by a system. We call it collection and monitoring of feedback from the stakeholder. That should be very automated system. Manually, very difficult to do that. But individual faculty members will collect input from here, because individual faculty members, they are the one actually proposing the courses. If I am the faculty, so during the time of curricular design and review, I am proposing this course should be in the curriculum. Other faculty members propose in the same way, this course should be in the curriculum. What is the logic? Logic will be okay. Then head of the department will collect all the proposals from the faculty members. They will compile it and submit to the specific curriculum committee. Faculty members will be there, at least one alumni representative will be there, and employers representative will be in the curriculum committee. They will do some sort of analysis of the proposal, and they will finalize the curriculum, place to the dean and academic council. That's the endorsement. So that process should be maintained each and every cases. Curricula cannot be something that we are developing, ignoring or without knowledge of majority stakeholders. We must accommodate their observations, their suggestions to make it comprehensive and develop sense of ownership to all the faculty members and stakeholders. Then program-specific body or committee. For your kind information, the green color areas, basically the accreditation criteria. These areas are important. If you want to apply for accreditation, you have to maintain that. That's why I made it green color, and in the parenthesis is the reference criteria 1 for standard 4, criteria 4 for standard 4. It's something like that. Then we have to look at, we have the process, now we have to look at the needs. As I mentioned, the stakeholders we have for better understanding. I'm simply making 6 categories of stakeholders. The first one is the national relevance. I mean the government. Government have something from the educational institutes and the graduates. In all cases, sustainable socio-economic development is the agenda for government. To make it, we need knowledge of modern and fast advancing world, forward-looking mindset, creativity, and innovation. Without that, you cannot make things sustainable in terms of socio-economic development. And these are the things available in our education policy. Secondly, there are some regulatory requirements. There is compliance. University Grants Commission, they have some requirements. Right now, they have one template, and we are to submit our curricula following their suggested template. That's the UGC requirements. Bangladesh National Qualifications, there are 17 provisions in the framework. 11 is with the program offering entity and the management of educational program. The other 6 with the policy matters of the higher education institution. So if you follow the UGC template, automatically you will comply with the 11 requirements of Bangladesh National Qualifications Framework. And that's why the template revised very recently. Thirdly, Accreditation Council, they have 10 standards and 63 criteria. If you follow the template of University Grants Commission, the revised one, automatically you will comply with 12 criteria of BSc accreditation. Then we have industry requirements, that is employability, hard skill and soft skill. What kinds of skill they need in terms of hard and soft, we need to identify. And in our curricula, teaching learning, we must have enough preparation and arrangement to develop those skills. Social and community needs. Society demands graduate will contribute to the social development. How? With leadership, with their values, citizenship, responsive behavior, and ethical practices. Other one is internationalization needs. That is mobility, as I mentioned, cross-cultural sensitivity, international relevance of your academic program in terms of courses and other things in the academic program in curricula that should be useful for international community. Otherwise, why foreigners will come here for their education? Then, of course, we have to look into the language of our teaching learning, flexibility to accommodate exchange. Private universities are in better shape. They have that policy to accommodate the exchange program, but public universities, they have a lot of problems because there's very structured program. So they need to change their attitude and they need to change their policy. The last one is professional and career requirements. I mean, students, they want achievement. If you want to achieve something, self-assessment, lifelong learning, stress management, these are very, very important issues. So following this list, you can identify for your particular academic program, what are the needs very important for your graduates. Then putting into a framework, we need to follow other things. This is what I want to refer. At the very outset, I mentioned, I will request my colleagues to go through an exercise, and the exercise will be started here. I'm just showing here sustainable development, communication skills, social contribution, mobility, self-management. These are the needs from various stakeholders. And it has to be transformed into GA, GA meaning graduate attributes, right? I mean, the graduates, they will have some sort of characteristics which actually will meet the needs of the stakeholders. So it should be connected. So how we can transform into GA, that's the exercise. I will give you, pass it to IQAC director, and you will get it maybe tonight or tomorrow. Please work on that and submit the other day. Then program objectives. If you want to develop graduates with these attributes, now the question is, what you need to do, what your program will do, that objectives will be summarized here. And accordingly, program learning outcomes. These components will be explained further. That's why I'm not wasting time over here. Let's go back. Then curriculum evaluation. We have our curricula already and we will evaluate that one. First evaluation, attainment of program learning outcomes. When graduates are going out with their certificate with one capstone course or comprehensive exam, we must check whether they have the attainment of program learning outcomes or not. If they don't have program learning outcomes, you cannot make them graduate. You cannot give them the certificate. Secondly, feedback from the graduating students. They can give you a lot of information, why they learn better, or what made them learning problematic, and accordingly you can prepare your academic program and improve it further for the next time. Employer's opinion. When graduates will try to get job or work somewhere to explore their career, then you can have feedback from the employers. What are the limitations or what are the good things about your graduates? Opinion of the faculty. I mean the course teachers who actually handle the courses, they have some sort of observations, which might be useful when we will review the curricula or redesign the curriculum. And last one, that is very important for quality graduates, that fitness of the graduates. You must check. Again, this cannot be done manually. We always requesting our higher education community to integrate technology so that they have the system to collect information about the employability of our graduates. Meaning, when your graduates are getting employment, either self-employment or working in other companies or whatever, before graduation, right after graduation, within 1 year, within 6 months, or some of them are not getting the right placement. What is the picture that has to be in place to check the suitability, effectiveness of your curriculum? Secondly, capacity to foster creativity and innovation. How many achievements done by your graduates or graduates of your program? That sometimes help people to understand how good the program you have or the curricula you have. Outstanding performance in research. It can be. Some of your graduates may be very good in research. They can have national and international recognition that will add feather on your hat. Employment opportunity creation for others. I mean, entrepreneurial activities. How many of them have that technique, have that capacity, or made it to employ some other people? That's also credibility of your program. Extent of contribution to the organization's national or international to achieve their objectives. Attractiveness, suitability for mobility. For example, if you find good number of students from international level applied to get admission in your program, that means your curricula is attractive. Or other way, a good number of students, they went out and they are going through their further study or job in international arena, that means your curricula is attractive for that particular point. These are the several ways we can check the evaluation of our curricula or effectiveness of our curricula. Now, the good practice is valid basis with documentation. Whenever you are changing anything in your curricula, that must be supported by valid basis and reasons. Unnecessarily, you cannot add a course, you cannot delete a course, or you cannot make any change in the curriculum. That's not good practice. So, and this thing should be documented, meaning other people will understand why this course dropped, which we had last 20 years. Now we dropped this course. Reasons should be clearly mentioned. And the last one, program learning outcomes, course learning outcomes, teaching learning activities must be met and aligned properly. These are the good practices. Now, before going to the UGC format, let me share a few things with you. And before going to this particular conceptual development or curricular development process, can I allow my colleagues to ask any question if they need to go for any further clarification or any confusion with any point that I was talking about? Taposh, are you with me?
Yes, sir, I'm with you.
Okay. Any question in the chat box or anywhere?
Still,
before going to the next, we can share a few things.
Still, we have not got any questions, sir. Dear faculty members, you can ask questions to our research person up to the slides that sir has completed.
Or anything related to curricular design and review, right? I will try my level best to clarify and to make your answers available when we will go through the process of curricular design, right? So don't hesitate to ask anything. If so,
Assalamualaikum, sir. I'm Rohuluddin. I'm assistant professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. I would like to know that there is a criteria of international standardization. How we measure that whether our curriculum has standardized internationally or whether it reflects the international education.
And there are a lot of ways. First, you can map. You can have benchmark any international school or university similar to your program or department. That's one thing, benchmarking. What they are doing, what I am doing. First one. Second one is when I am producing graduates, if they comfortably moving abroad for further study or working with an international organization, that will help to understand your curricula is at par with international standard. Third one, if you find some international students are showing interest to get admission in that program, that means your curricula to some extent is acceptable to the international community. There's three parameters I can tell you right at this time. But very importantly, mapping is important. Mapping meaning, as I mentioned, benchmarking. So what they are doing, what I am doing. So if you align those, then you will find the gaps. How things should go through and how we are running the program, that will also help us to identify the lapses and gaps to be internationalized. There are so many other processes. I'm just telling a few things so that at least we can understand what we should do if you want to make our education internationalized or our programs acceptable to the international community.
Yeah, right, sir. You are. I got your point. But what I want to ask you that different countries have different education system.
Yes.
So I am asking you that why that UGC have structured or researched on generalization such that a program can have in our program can have generalized views of different countries such that they can be accepted or graduate can be accepted easily in different countries with different curricula as they have. I am asking you.
If we go through the UGC format, that what we will do after a few minutes, then you will find a lot of freedom you have. Although this is a very structured template, but choosing your program learning outcomes, selecting your graduate attributes, UGC is not going to suggest any set of attributes. You have the freedom. So university always must enjoy some sort of autonomy because that's the center of excellence. Everybody have their own concern and their outlook and their philosophy. Accordingly, they will make their graduates ready for life. And that's why all graduates will never go in the same. But to characterize the discipline, there are some similarities that we should maintain. When we talk about the content of curricula, I think this point we can discuss further. Is it okay, sir? Can you wait for a few minutes?
Okay, right, sir. Thank you.
Any other question, Mr. Taposh?
Sir, in the chat box, one of our faculty members actually asked about a point that is compliance with QF. Would you please kindly clarify this point again?
Compliance meaning qualifications framework, it has around 17 provisions for the higher education institutions. 11 is with the program offering entity, I mean related to program management and the graduate's quality. Other 6 is with the policy matters of university, right? So in 2 levels, we have to work for that. And when I will go through the UGC format, in some areas, we will specify this is DNQF requirement and this one DNQF requirements, right? If you ask me to talk about that 11 right at this time, that will make some sort of problem to go through the format. Can I have a break for 2 minutes because one mosque nearby house is going, Azan is going on there? Is it okay, Taposh?
Yes, sir, you can. Yes, sir, sure. We are taking a break and soon we'll start our workshop very soon. We are waiting for.
Okay, thank you. I'm back. Can you start, Taposh? It's all right?
Yes, sir, we can start again. One question we got in the chat box. The question is asked by M. Mofizuddin. The question is, how do we differentiate between PO and PLO?
Okay. PO is intent to do by the program offering entity for the program. And PLO is if the program offering of entity can do that perfectly, then what will be with the graduates, that's PLO, program learning outcomes, what capacity students will have. So we have some discussion on that. Maybe you can understand better when I'll go through that one. But basic difference is PO meaning what program intend to do with the students. And the learning outcome, PLO, that's if that is happening, then what will be with the students in terms of their capacity and skills, attitude, and knowledge. That's PLO, program learning outcomes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then let me allow to go through the curriculum development process. The very first, we need to understand or conceptualize why the curricula is all about and why it will work. For example, the general objectives of education. On top of everything, we have to produce human resource. That means human is first, then they will become the resource, right? So in our BNQF, somebody raised the question that provisions of BNQF, right? We started now, look at here. This is mandatory for all academic programs. Please try to note it. These learning domains are mandatory for all academic programs. We have 4 domains here: fundamental domain, social domain, thinking domain, personal domain. Fundamental domain mostly with the discipline-specific knowledge and skills. Social domain is with the communication. I mean, what students need to survive in the society, work with other people in the society. That is social domain. Then thinking domain, problem solving, analysis, research skill, critical thinking, all are thinking domain. And the last one, personal domain, that's ethics, self-direction, integrity, citizenship, empathy to others. These types of behavior or attributes our graduate must have. That's personal domain. So if you ignore particular one, that means you are not complying with BNQF, and that is not acceptable. All program must address more or less all the domains so that we can say we are complying with the BNQF. Is it okay? Okay. This is what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Look at here. Sorry. Conceptualization, right? Okay. Then we have defining vision, mission, and objectives. These are the part of our UGC template. That's why I'm not talking here. We'll talk when we'll go through the UGC format. Then we have identifying and assessing needs. Sometimes I have to face the questions, how can we identify the needs? In many cases, our colleagues or department facing difficulties to identify the needs. That's why I'm suggesting them to go through this process. You will have the needs. For example, education policy of the government. The general objectives of education is written over there. Analyze the purpose of education. National qualifications framework, as I mentioned, 11 provisions are there. Then alumni survey. Alumni will give you what are the requirements for career, success in career. Then university industry collaboration. If you have that collaboration, industry will tell you what they need from you and your graduates. Research findings on employability, very neglected area in Bangladesh. We normally don't do that, but we have to. Meaning how our students are getting employment, what are the difficulties they are facing. We need to identify those, and accordingly, we need to change or update our curriculum. Industry trend analysis, as we mentioned, third industrial revolution. Now we are going through the fourth industrial revolution. So a lot of changes are there in terms of requirements. If you don't understand that one, then probably you won't be able to update our curricula. There will be misfit. Then employment policy and job circular of companies, meaning you can identify a few companies where your graduates are mostly moving for their career development. You can look into their job requirements, their policy of recruitment. Accordingly, you can change your curriculum. Study on entrepreneurial profile. If your program is focusing on develop some entrepreneur, then you have to look into the entrepreneurial profile. How entrepreneurs can be, what kinds of attributes and process they have to go through so that they will be successful entrepreneur after graduation. And then defining graduate profile, we call it GA. Again, we have some guidelines, simply guideline in National Qualifications Framework. It says all graduates in 4-year or 5-year bachelor degree level must have this knowledge, must have this capacity or understanding about the discipline and other courses. I'm just making it short, but actually in graduate profile of BNQF, there's a long discussion about this one. I'm requesting my graduate students and others to go through that one so that they will understand from the program what are the characteristics, what are the learning things they have to have before graduation. And accordingly, our faculty and program offering entity, so that we can make preparation accordingly to provide or to give our students right knowledge, skills, and attitude for graduation. Then we can look into the other things also. Content of the curricula. Look at here, I'm not talking about content of course, content of curricula. One of my colleagues asked a question relating to that one. We can look into this one. We have some dilemma when we are developing the curricula. First dilemma is how many credits we must have. BNQA, Bangladesh National Qualifications, already mentioned 140 for bachelor degree program of 4 years. And if it is 5 years program like architecture, veterinary science, or medical, then you must have minimum 160. You can have little more than that, but you cannot have less than that. So your BBA program or other bachelor degree program, if it is 4 years, you must have minimum 140 credits, right? Then how many courses? Again, dilemma. Will you have all courses in 3 credit, 2 credit, or 4 credit? So we have to think about this. How can we make our courses in terms of credit? Then degree of similarities and degree of differences, as I mentioned, internationalization and localization, right? So will you have the same courses MIT is offering for a degree like your university? Or you will offer the same courses what BUET is offering or Dhaka University is offering? Or you will have some changes in your curriculum? The answer, you must have. Otherwise, you won't be able to align the courses, you won't be able to design the content of your curriculum. Then the question is, how many credits and courses, I mean length of curriculum? There are some guiding policies. If you understand that, that might help us to set the courses with a justified level of courses and number of credits. First one, courses justified through skill mapping. It's in the UGC template. That's why I'm not showing it here now. Enough to address the qualifications framework and achieve the qualifications as referred in the framework. What does it mean? A few minutes ago, I was talking about the learner's profile as mentioned in the BNQF. The courses we have, if it is enough to achieve that level of learning, so you can say sufficient courses I have. International compatibility, you have 20 courses, but no courses are there to match with the international requirement, that means you have lapses. So you must have some courses so that you can comply with the international requirements. Then again, another one is affordable to students. If you have many courses in the curricula, it at one stage may not be affordable to your students. If your students cannot afford that, proper learning will be disturbed. They won't be able to get all the learning outcomes from so many courses. That means optimization is very important. Other one is manageable by the program offering entity. For example, if you have 60 courses, 70 courses, you have to prepare class routine. You have to arrange classes for all these courses. You have to arrange lab facilities for all these courses. Maybe a problem for the program offering entity or head of the program offering entity. I mean, it may not be manageable. And the last one, if you find the courses you have in the curricula good enough for your students to get good jobs or employment, that means your curricula length is okay. So this is the way we can rationalize. The last one, I can refer the question we had a few minutes ago, how we can make international or what should be the similarities, dissimilarities, something like that. I was talking with many international QA experts. Is there any equation? The answer is no. But some practices are there. Look at here. First, we should have prerequisite or foundation courses. In many countries, in many universities, these courses are beyond the regular curricula. They call it prerequisite or foundation. And POP and POD, many of you may understand the word, points of parity and point of difference. Generally, to characterize the discipline, it's suggested 75 to 80% courses should be similar. For example, if my program is Bachelor in Computer Science, and if I am selecting the courses, in that cases, I have to maintain consistency with other renowned universities who are offering the same course or program. For example, BUET or any international university. At least 75% to 85% or 80% courses should be similar. Otherwise, characterization will not be there. But one thing you must remember, this is simply a thumb rule. There is no hard and fast bindings 70 to 80. It can be 85, it can be 70. Depending on your philosophy of your university or graduate attributes, you can make it. But more or less close to that will be acceptable. Secondly, you can have some special requirements, maybe from your government, maybe from the employers, maybe from your society. And that's why you have to maintain some special courses, which courses are not maintained by other universities, maybe international universities, right? These can be 20% to 25%. Again, no hard and fast rule. It can be 18%, it can be 30%, but close to that. Now, the last one is you have to position what your graduates will be. Look at here, MIT and Harvard. If I'm talking about MBS perspective, those and both of them are internationally highly credible business education provider. But there are some difference of their graduates' quality. MIT is more on quantity. Harvard is more on case method and qualitative, right? So that's their positioning. It's not the question of their quality. Their quality is on top, but they have their own positioning. So that's why you can set your positioning, you can establish your positioning in the educational institute with your configuration of courses. But you have to remember subject requirements, benchmark, and mobility of your graduates. This is simply guiding principle. There is no hard and fast rule. You have some specific needs, graduate attributes designed by you. Accordingly, you should set your course or develop your curriculum content. Now, how we are going to structure that one? Normally, we do that. Prerequisite at the very beginning, then we have to set foundation and interdisciplinary courses. In the second and third year, you have the semester, right? Courses that construct the knowledge and build broad-based foundation in the discipline. Why I am telling you this one? In some cases, you know, we have a provision in many universities in our country that's called carryover. Very dangerous. I have so many experiences with this carryover. Some cases this is observed, students, they moved in the upward level. I mean, in advanced classes without completion of required courses in the beginning semesters. That's creating huge problem for them to accept the advanced level learning outcomes. That's why structuring is important. It's a sequential development. Graduates will come with little knowledge, they will go for broader knowledge, they will go for specialized knowledge, advanced level. So that's why we need to organize courses in a way students will have no difficulties to accept the advanced level of learning when they're moving in the higher level semester. The other things, you know, audit course, I'm not sure the practice you have or not. In Bangladesh, we normally don't practice that one. But this is very important option for the development of our students. The nature of audit courses, in the regular curricula, you are not in a position to offer the courses because you have limitation. 40 courses, 30 courses, you cannot go beyond that. But your students realized they need to go through some courses which they find very effective, important for their career. For example, business graduates, right? Going at the fourth year, they realized programming is important for them. But in your BBA program, you may not be in a position to offer courses relating to programming. But your students want that. What will happen? Then audit course option can help you, meaning you will offer some courses consulting with the relevant department. Condition is students will pay for that on their own in addition to their regular tuition fee. And when you will calculate the CGPA, you cannot include audit course, but in the transcript, you have to declare, mention your student did these courses. These courses basically on request and requirements of your student. But program offering entities must have that option to accommodate them, to entertain, to make their wishes successful, offering some audit courses. And the last one is capstone courses that consolidate competence and work experience. It can be internship, thesis, projects, work integration, whatever suitable for your discipline to check. Before getting the graduation or diploma, students are proving that they have the program learning outcomes. And that's the structuring system. Then defining learning outcomes, please try to understand that we have exercise on that. And when we'll go through the UGC curricula, we must need this. The way we should define the learning outcomes, there are three components in each learning outcomes. One is action verb, second one is standard, the other one is condition. Normally, quality assurance and accrediting body, they accept minimum 2 you must have when you are defining one learning outcomes. Verb is common, so you must have verb and standard or verb and condition. Look at the examples. Would be able to use, this is action verb, in defining the learning outcomes. The rules of communication accurately is a standard, meaning 100% accuracy or 90% accuracy or 95% accuracy. So this is action verb, this is standard. Second example, would be able to present the subject matter using IT devices. Simple. To understand, I made it very simple. You have the action verb, would be able to present, but condition is you have to do the job using IT devices. In many cases, we can give certain conditions. Look at here, the third example. Would be able to communicate the subject matter. This is action verb, right? To the audience in real life situation. That's the condition. It's not in exam. It's not at home. You have to speak properly with 100% accuracy in public speaking in front of other people in real life situation, right? So that means we have action verb, we have condition, we have standard. 3 in 1 learning outcomes. So that is the way we have to define the learning outcomes. There are some other rules I will tell you when time will come. Is it okay to follow, Taposh?
Yes, sir. We are listening, sir.
Okay.
One more question is available in the message box. Should I ask?
Yes.
The question is from M.M. Mofizuddin, sir. He asked that what will be the audit courses for BBA program, and he also asked for an example.
As I mentioned, sir, BBA students normally taking some regular courses set in your curricula, right? Now, students realize if they learn Chinese language, that will help them to get good job or career development or move out, right? But your curricula, there is no regular Chinese course, French language course, it's not there, right? But students want that. So what you can do, you can consult with your language department and request them to offer the course or a module for maybe 10, 12, 15 students of your department or from other departments. So that's modular learning, right? So if they have the language course, that will help them to be advantageous or to get the competitive advantage in their career. That's the audit course. Similarly, your business graduates, maybe many of you graduates interested in computer programming, but normally in BBA program, we cannot accommodate that much IT courses to develop the programming, right? So you can consult with computer science department and offer 2-3 courses for programming. Condition, as I mentioned, the cost involved with these courses will be paid by the interested students. So that's why you need to identify optimum number of students, maybe 10, 12, or 15 to meet the cost of offering that course. CGPA of that course cannot be calculated when you are preparing the result of the students, right? The other one is the courses they have completed as audit course must be mentioned on the transcript so that they can show to the employer or when they will develop or go out for career development, they can claim we have some extra learning. Look at this one. So this is the way we can run the audit courses. Sir, is it okay? There are so many other options, you know. We have.
I understand, sir. Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you, sir. Can we move to look into the teaching learning?
Sure, sir.
Since we have to do an exercise of alignment of teaching, learning, and outcome, that's why I'm giving a very brief idea about some teaching practices. First one is outcome-based, right? Outcome-based curricula, but to attain the learning outcomes, we must follow some rules or way of doing the job by the faculty member and students as well. For example, if you want to adapt OBE, outcome-based education, in your teaching learning practices, we must do this. First one, role of teacher, look at here. What teachers should do. First, preparing the students by explaining the syllabus. At the very beginning of your course class, you must explain the learning outcomes in terms of what they have to learn, why they should learn it, how will I be as meaning student, how the learning will be useful in career. There are 4 questions must be explained by the course teacher at the very outset of semester courses. Otherwise, students may not feel interested in attainment of these learning outcomes, or they won't be able to relate the course with their program. It happened in many cases when I was reviewing many academic programs, particularly in engineering. Many students asked me, sir, I am an architecture student, so why should I go for economics? Why should I read philosophy? Why should I read course on sociology? Do you have any answer, my colleagues? Architecture students should study economics or study sociology? Students don't have the answer because probably the concerned faculty member failed to relate the course with the architecture. That's why we are requesting this time. It is the responsibility of faculty to explain why this particular course is important for the program or graduates of that program. Otherwise, student normally will not show any interest to go through the exercises for the attainment of learning outcomes of that course. They simply will work to pass in that course. Passing a course and attainment of learning outcomes, not the same thing. So we have a lot of missing things here. Even for the business students, if any BBA graduates ask you, I'm a business graduate, I must go through the accounting and other things. So why should I go for psychology? Then my psychology professor should explain them why psychology is important for business graduates and how this is related with the needs and graduate attributes. That is
Sorry, sir, I have a question.
Yes,
As
sir.
you have mentioned that an architecture student should know or should be introduced with psychology. But a teacher who teaches psychology, should he be introduced in during his studentship about the architectural discipline?
One thing, Mr. Ruhul Amin, can you write the question here? Let us finish first, then we can have the question answer session.
Okay, it's all right.
Yeah.
Then secondly, putting CLOs within an appropriate context, meaning the course learning outcomes you defined that should be in the real life situation, relating with the competencies of graduates, meaning if students attain particular learning outcomes, how it will help them to be competitive, to be capable of doing something. Then students may be interested to go through the process, right? Otherwise, why they will go for example, students or a group of students, let's say you are making ready for them for cricket. Now you are asking them to run in the field. Now you have to relate. Running in the field related with fitness, and fitness is important to be a good cricketer or fielder, right? Then probably they will feel into, oh, I have to be a very good cricketer. I need the fitness, so I have to go through the dieting, or I have to go through the jogging, running, whatever we can call it. This is the way in all courses we have to relate students with the context of where they will develop the competence. Then facilitating as resource person. In OB, teachers will be the resource person. Spoon feeding is not acceptable in OB. Students will learn on their own. Teachers should guide them as a learning manager. So we need to identify our role in the process of learning so that we can make our graduates capable to grasp the learning points from the discussion or whatever exercise we are pushing them to go for. Then assessing the students' prerequisite knowledge and guiding to develop. This is, although I am putting it here, but it should come first, meaning when you are offering a course or starting a course at the very outset, it is very important to check whether they have the prerequisite knowledge or learning outcomes or not. For example, you are teaching business research. Before, you have to make sure students have statistical knowledge, right? If students don't have the statistical knowledge, they might have problem to go through the research process and to make research the way it should be. Then providing effective instructions, enabling the students to attain the learning outcomes, course learning outcomes, meaning what kinds of exercise, what kinds of teaching learning materials useful for the students, you must guide them to select those ones so that they can relate it and they can have the attainment of course learning outcomes in a desired manner and level. This is what actually OB. Then problem-based learning. In some universities, particularly in Europe, they prefer this one. But we find in outcome-based education, we can make a blend. Looking at the nature of your course learning outcomes and course, we can also accommodate 2-3 types of teaching learning methods. Blending sometimes give us good result. Now, if your department want to implement PBL, problem-based learning, what is to be done? First, prepare faculty for change. Mindset of faculty need to be changed. PBL is not something that in lecture, I am giving all the learning points in PowerPoint presentation and then a student will memorize. That's not PBL. PBL meaning putting students in a situation where they will identify the problem, define the problem, and solve the problem. That's why what is suggested, you have to design new problems and defining CLOs. It's the responsibility of teacher to identify the problem areas relating to his or her course. You have to plan, organize students, and manage the learning process so that students will face the problem and solve the problem. This is the way we can adapt PBL in our teaching learning method. Then case method, one of the most effective way of developing creativity, critical thinking. But it is very important to understand how we should run the case method. Some tips here, how we can manage the case method learning process. First, setting goals and objectives. What is to be learned? Meaning the learning outcomes you already defined. And you have to select relevant cases looking at your learning outcomes or target or objectives of learning. And you must allow your students sufficient to meet the members in a group. I mean, group discussion. Group discussion is very important for case method learning. When students are discussing the same case in a group, a lot of insights they can share, which actually help them to solve the problems in the case. Then classroom setup, the flipped classroom, very important for case method program. So if you want to run case method program, we must organize case classroom in a way, it's something like oval shape classroom. Everybody can see each other because it's a discussion, it's argument, debate with the problems in the case and getting best possible learning outcomes out of the case discussion. Teacher's role is just to facilitate the discussion, not to draw any points, not to give any insight in the discussion, simply facilitate the process and discussion by the students. Sometimes teachers can ask questions. If you mention it in that way, what will happen? Something like that. Classroom activities allow students for arguments. I mean, debate should be there. If students are not arguing with each other, learning will not be there. So this is the way we can adapt or play case method for better learning of our students. The last one, this time in universities, we are requesting our faculty members to make teaching learning student-centered. Student-centered, the most important word is making a student responsible for their learning. Traditionally, the job we are doing, that's what we call teacher-centered learning. Teacher-centered learning sometimes making students bored, disinterested, pressured with the content of learning teachers are providing to them. That's why student-centered learning in a better way. It's responsibility primarily with the students. High level of student choice. What student will learn, how will they learn, it's their choice. Student select the program. Sometimes they select the courses, as I mentioned, even the audit courses, and teacher and program offering entity make the arrangement. And students will become active. Since it's their responsibility to learn, they will be active. Whereas in teacher-centered learning, students become very passive. higher level of engagement. They will be engaged in the process. But the challenge is to make students ready for learning. That I mentioned at the very outset is the responsibility of faculty. Why the learning is important for them and how it's going to help them in career. Repeatedly, we have to tell them, and some way we have to motivate them for learning. Otherwise, system will not work. When students will be motivated, they will be committed, they will learn with a lot of fun. That's the spirit and main philosophy of student-centered learning. So these are the alternative teaching learning things. Now, assessment tools and techniques, we have a lot of options, but we need to understand which one is appropriate in which situation. That is important. Otherwise, we are not in a position, we won't be able to make the appropriateness and alignment. Sorry, then. Now we can move to the UGC format, and before going to UGC format, can we have any question, discussion further? Suppose
Sir,
any valid questions so that before moving to UGC format, we can spend a few minutes here.
I think here are some questions asked. Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I think one already you answered, PO and PLO.
Okay.
And also another teacher asked, how do you explain the mapping of stakeholders and learning outcome?
Okay.
So you're going to discuss.
It's a part of the UGC format, so we'll go through, then probably they will realize, right?
Okay, then another question, what will be the audit courses for BBA program?
Yeah, I already mentioned BBA audit course concept. First is concept. The courses not in the regular curriculum, but students want those courses because they realize these courses may help them to develop their career better, right? So it's the responsibility of program offering entity to provide that opportunities to their students, because students cannot get enrollment. For example, as I mentioned, my BBA student want to learn programming. Is there any opportunity for them to get enrollment in computer science department? Answer is no. So how they will learn that? Maybe they will go out of the university. So we can offer them the facilities. They will be with the university, they will learn it. Even language I mentioned. There are so many things for other students also, which may be important for their career. For example, we offer 1-2 research courses, right? But your students may demand analytic. So maybe that is not in the regular offering. So you have to make the arrangement so that students can go through that courses. System I mentioned, students will pay for the cost. You cannot value the grade they received in audit courses when you will calculate the CGPA. But in the transcript, you have to mention what are the audit courses completed by a student. That is the provision and system of maintaining audit courses in the curriculum, right? It's actually not part of the original or constructed curricula you have. It is basically helping the students. Since they are your students, so it is your responsibility to help them for their career.
Yeah, thank you very much. Here is another question. Is there any limitations of number of non-credit courses?
Non-credit or credit? Actually, we don't suggest for any equation for that one. If you want to offer some non-credit and students are ready to go for that one, it's up to you. But non-credit course, there are a lot of questions about that one. Students normally do not show that much interest to get the proper learning outcomes of non-credit courses. They simply want to complete the courses somehow. Sometimes it creates problem, attainment of learning outcomes. So there is no hard and fast rule in the UGC format. It's up to the entity. If you want to offer something non-credit, you can. No restriction is there. But we have to maintain affordability to our students because some credit courses are there. If they can afford, beyond that, it's okay. No restriction is there.
Okay, another question is there any international standard of percentage of foundation courses in a particular
Not
program?
really, not really. So far as I know, I did not find any specific things because it depends on the quality of intake. Normally what they do in North America and other universities, you know very well, they send a student or force students to go for challenge exam to prove that they have the requisite learning already. If any missing points are there, let's say linguistic problem, ICT problem, or mathematical shortcoming, then they suggest students before joining the main program, you please complete these 2, 3, 4 courses. It happened, but actually there is no hard and fast rule. 20 credit, 10 credit, or 5 credit prerequisite. It's not like that. It depends on the quality of intake in many cases.
Thank you. Here is another question. How many interdisciplinary courses should be added in curriculum? Is there any criteria or is it program specific?
Actually, for curricula, nothing. But Bangladesh Accreditation Council, they have their requirements. If you want to apply for accreditation, you must have at least 25% courses. We call it general education courses. That's interdisciplinary, beyond the discipline, for bachelor degree program. That's accreditation purposes. But UGC, they don't have, but they have an option. You can 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever possible, you can keep. But Accreditation Council, they mentioned minimum 25% general education courses should be there. That's interdisciplinary courses. Is that okay, sir?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Now you can proceed further.
Now I will go through the UGC template, which is this time the most important agenda for us to develop our curricula following that template. Always when I'm talking about outcome-based education, I use the term begin with the end in mind, Stephen Covey. When we are developing the curricula, even students are not at your department. And when students will be enrolled, they will be graduated after 4 or 5 years. But now we have to design what are the requirements and how I can make those requirements, how I will develop my students for the requirements of after 4 years or 5 years. That's why I said, begin with the end in mind. This is the UGC format. It has 4 parts, A, B, C, D for the main format of UGC template. Look at here, I'm going to point. Title of the academic program. I know you are very knowledgeable about that one. You have the academic program, so you can write your title. Name of the university, your university name. Vision of the university, your university vision. Maybe IQAC already helped the university to define their vision if it is not defined properly. Similarly, mission of the university. Name of the program offering entity, I mean your department, faculty, or institute, whatever, right? Now, starting from here, vision of the program offering entity. Normally, vision is a big picture. It's dreaming. After a certain period of time, normally 15, 20 years, where you want to see your department, that will be in the vision statement. It should be very inspirational so that the stakeholders internally looking at the vision, they will be encouraged to work to achieve that, to make the university in that way. Just an example here. You can follow that, you can define your own vision, it's up to you. But normally in quality assurance, the way we are suggesting, for example, to become a credible and internationally recognized higher education institution. In your case, you can say your institute, faculty, or business. In the region, you can say in the country, you can say in the world. It's up to you. In terms of center of excellence in teaching, research, and impact in the society. Impact is important. If you cannot have impact in the society, it does not make sense to produce some graduates. So that's why excellence in teaching, research, we have to make some contribution to the social development, right? That may be the vision of a department, faculty, or even university. Then mission statement. Under the vision, mission is more on reality. Vision is dreaming, right? So in case of mission statement, normally we suggest to have 4 components. What do we do today? What are the differentiating features or benefits we are trying to develop? How will you do it? And for whom we do it? Look at vision statement. Mission of the faculty or department of your faculty or department is to develop human resource with intellectual capability, leadership, spirit of lifelong learning, cross-cultural and ethical values. It's up to you what you will put over here. Depending on the needs of your stakeholder, depending on the philosophy of your university, vision of your university, you can write the phrases here. Now the question is how you will do it? Through quality education and knowledge culture. Quality education, teaching, learning, knowledge culture, research. Why you are going to do that? For better life, better nation and society, right? So this is simply an example. My suggestion is to have the 4 components as I colored in different way, so that this will be a very comprehensive mission statement for your department or faculty. Then go back to the objectives. Under the mission, each program offering entity must have some objectives. If you don't have the objectives, then what you will achieve? And that's why this should be very intelligently looking at your facilities and other things you should define. For example, to achieve the vision and mission of the department intends to offer undergraduate and graduate program. For example, if you do not mention undergraduate and graduate program in your objectives, how can you offer this program? That's why this is very important to have the objectives clearly defined. So far as I know, in North American practices, if you don't have the goal and objectives, you're never going to accept it by any quality assurance agency. We adopted the same practice in Bangladesh. So please try to define objectives of an entity if it is not defined till now. Look at here. Provide conducive academic environment and engage students in the learning process. That's simply example. A few examples I am showing over here. You can borrow something from here. You can develop your own objectives. Point is, you have your objectives and those are very clearly defined and achievable objectives, right? That is the point. For example, the last one, look at it. Promote regional integration and university industry collaboration. Now, for example, if you don't have this in your objective, when you will approach to any industry, and if they find that's not the objective of your entity, they will say, oh, why you are approaching for UIC? You have no objectives for that one. You will be in trouble. That's why we always request what you want to do, you have to develop your objectives accordingly. Okay. The name of the degree, you have to write the name of Bachelor of Business Administration, Bachelor of Computer Science, whatever. You should write it here. And description of the program. Look at here, 2 points I mentioned. When you are describing your program, you have to justify why this program is offered, how it is connected with the needs of the stakeholders. If you fail to justify, then it will not make any sense to offer that program. I mean, why are you offering that program if it has nothing to do to address the needs or to serve the purposes of a stakeholder? That's why suggestion is first identify the needs and connect the program with the needs so that it will be justified. Rationally, something like that. Then graduate attributes. we talked a lot about that one. Actually, graduate attributes meaning characteristics of graduates, qualifications of your graduates. Just one example here. Washington Accord, if you have an engineering program at your department, Washington Accord, they have 12 attributes. And many countries in the world, they maintain the same. Even in Bangladesh, the BIAT, Board for Engineering Accreditation, they also maintain that one. We from Bangladesh Accreditation Council also encouraging that one, because we find the attributes designed or defined by Washington Accord, it has very close relation with the domains of qualifications framework. Look at here, fundamental domain, social domain, thinking domain, personal domain. Our obligation was to comply with the national qualifications framework. If you define your graduate attributes following the guidelines of Washington Accord, that's automatically fit with the national qualifications framework. Secondly, look at here, World Economic Forum. They suggested these 15 attributes, and we tried to map it. We find these are also aligned with the 4 domains of learning suggested in qualifications framework. So when you will develop your graduate attributes, you have to remember, you must match with the 4 domains. You cannot ignore anyone, as I mentioned, right? You may say, I'm developing doctors, so they will be very much good in medical science. They don't need to study social science. They don't need to understand management. Graduates will not be appropriate for the country. And this program is not be recognized by the government anymore, because government make qualifications framework mandatory for all academic programs. I think point is very clear to us. This is what graduate attributes, when you will make in our curricula following the UGC template, these things will come in that way. Look at here, just example, communication skill, job knowledge, IT skill, interpersonal team building skill, self-management skill. There is no boundary. You can write 15, 20, 10, 7, but whatever you will write here as graduate attributes, you must have sufficient course in your curricula to achieve all these attributes. That's why we normally suggest to limit it with the needs of the stakeholders. You cannot make everything in undergraduate or in master's program or in one academic program. So you must be very intelligent enough to identify what are the graduate attributes sufficient, appropriate for particular academic program. You cannot make everything. Suggestion is connect with the need or identify the needs and then try to develop the graduate attributes. So what is first? First is identifying the needs, because graduate attributes are some sort of transformation from the needs to GA. So we should remember that one. When defining the graduate attributes, I mentioned no limit in terms of number, but you should not make it too much. If you make it long, then you have to include so many courses in the curricula, which may not be possible because you have credit limitation, you have management limitation, you have resource limitation. And again, students may not be in a position to afford all the study load. So that's why intelligently you have to optimize everything. Then we have program educational objectives. Australia, New Zealand, in Malaysia, all these countries are normally suggesting to maintain the program education objectives. UGC accepted that one, and that's why this point is here. Actually, program education objective is something what you want your graduates to be after graduation, a certain level, maybe after 4 years, 5 years. In New Zealand, Malaysia, I found they said after 1 to 2 years. But if you consider Bangladesh, it's very difficult in Bangladesh. Our graduates need 3 to 4 years to settle in a job. So how they will perform over there? that will be visible to everyone. That's why in Bangladesh, maybe 4 to 5 years, you can check what your graduates are doing, how they are performing, what is their contribution and achievement. And these are very generally defined. For example, good citizens with enlightened careers, capable enough to make significant contribution to enhance economic contribution, employment generation, socio-economic development, something like that. Effective change agent, that means in their career, what recognition they should, according to your objectives of offering program. That is program education objectives. Look at here, I mentioned maybe 5 to 10 years for Bangladesh, because in our country it's not very easy to get good job right after graduation. It takes 3 to 4 years to settle in a job. So how they will perform or show something credible for the academic program and university. Number 13, program objectives. One of my colleagues asked a question about that one, what actually mean by program objectives. Look at here, program objectives actually refers what program offering entity intends to do for the development of the students as per GA. What does it mean? You defined your GA based on your identified needs. Now, what your department want to do for the students so that they will have the graduate attributes. For example, let's say it's a program, the objectives of the program to equip the graduates with required contemporary knowledge and analytical skills for effective decision under a complex environmental setting. That's objective, right? Remember what I mentioned, when you have the objective, if you can do that perfectly, automatically, that will result learning outcomes. If you translate this one, for example, if you give them contemporary knowledge, analytical skill for decision making in a complex environmental setting. So what does it mean? What will be your learning outcomes? Effective decision maker or ability to make decision in a complex situation. Look at the third one. To develop graduates with the ability to communicate effectively in both written and spoken English. What does it mean? You develop these objectives because in the GA, you have one point that is communication skill. That's why you are forced to do that, right? So if you can do it, what is the result? You will be good communicator. This is what actually relation between PLO and PO. Now, the most important part for us, program learning outcomes. I mentioned a few rules for developing or defining learning outcomes. That's true for program and course, both cases. Again, we are giving some other things. When we are trying to develop or design or define program learning outcomes, we have to specify skills, level of thinking skills, I mean taxonomy. We refer normally Bloom's taxonomy, behavior, performance, condition, standards, so many things. When you will define the learning outcomes, these three things must. Normally, I suggest to follow SMART. You're the management and business people, you know what is SMART. SMART, S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for relevant, and T for time bound. Meaning, if it is program learning outcomes, you have some needs. So learning outcome must be related with the needs. It should be very specific. The way you define, students need to understand in the same way. If there is any ambiguity, then there will be a problem. Measurable meaning students are attaining that one. Your assessment method should be competent enough so that you can judge, you can assess how far, at what level your students attain the learning outcomes. Then you have to remember your program has very specific time, maybe 4 years or 5 years. So a student must attain all the learning outcomes within that time. That means You cannot have anything that is not possible to attain within that 4 years or 5 years program duration. That's why we are suggesting it should be doable, meaning attainable, observable, measurable. If you can maintain this, then it will be the ideal program learning outcomes. I'm showing you few examples. These are something that's submitted by many universities. And when I was reviewing some curricula, to me, some observations. For example, look at here. PLO number 4, ability to understand, analyze, and communicate global, legal, and ethical aspects of business, right? So something confusing here, ability to analyze and communicate. Other point is normally, we suggest to avoid the words like understand, explain, because these words are more on lower order learning level of taxonomy. Some of you who have the knowledge about the Bloom's taxonomy, you know the upper level and lower level. Today, I will try to show a few on that. Maybe not today, maybe day after tomorrow. So that's why we should not put it here. Other thing is that tertiary level education is for higher order thinking skills. I mean, upper level of taxonomy. So understand, define, explain, these are not very suitable words for them. Similarly, in PLO 6, a lot of things mentioned in one sentence. That's very confusing. So that's why I'm showing this. When we will define our program learning outcomes for our academic programs, we'll try to make things in a way so that everybody will clearly understand what it mentioned and what is expected from these learning outcomes. Now, a few points of the UGC template, mapping POEs and the POE. Look at here, mapping. This template is given. I think everybody have the UGC template, right? So you can look at that one and you can make some sort of mapping or alignment with your education objectives. When you have a defined mission, it may have 1, 2, 3, 4 components. Now, this mission will be achieved by your graduates when they will be out of your educational institution or department. That means when our program education objectives will be attained, that somehow will meet the mission statement of your department. So what is obligation we have? We have obligation to map program education objectives and mission, meaning how program education objectives will meet or help to achieve the mission. You have to show it here. Point is, it is not mandatory to have connection of all POEs with all mission statements, meaning PEO1 may have only connection with mission 1. Sufficient, good enough. Forcefully, we should not try to connect each other with all the components of mission. That is not wise decision. I will show you maybe today or day after tomorrow how our colleagues did something which is very interesting but not acceptable anymore. Then we can go for other mapping of PLOs and PO. Now, POEs are there, PLOs are here. Now you have to show the program learning outcomes you define, how these actually helping our graduates to achieve the program education objectives we already defined, right? Now the question is, if anything happened, you have the program education objectives, but one program learning outcomes has nothing to do with any of these PEO. So what will happen? What we will do? You have to redefine that one or you have to drop that one, because it is not encouraged, acceptable to include something in the PLO that has nothing to do with the PEO or mission or vision of your program of learning entity. Why? Remember, this PEO will actually achieve the mission. So if any PLO has no connection with any PEO, that has nothing to do to contribute in the achievement of your mission. So why should we maintain that one? Because to achieve particular PLO, you must offer 2, 3, 4, 5 courses. That means all the efforts for those courses has no value when we are considering the achievement of mission and achievement of program education objective. That's why we have to be very careful about that one. If things are not connected, we have to redefine, we have to look back what can be there that will actually map, or other point is forcefully will not do that. Logically mapping is very important. Now, I was talking about justifying the courses. This template also included in the UGC OB curriculum template. Look at the left column, course number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can have 50 courses proposed by your faculty members to include in the curricula, right? Can you include everything? No, because you have limitation. You have 140 credit, you have 148 credit, 50 credit, or 60 credit, right? You cannot accommodate all the proposed courses. Now, how you will drop courses from the proposal? Look at here. When courses are offered, it is the responsibility of individual faculty. For example, I am proposing course number 1 to include in the curriculum. It's my responsibility to prove that. If we include this course in the curricula, that will help us to attain PLO 1 and PLO 3 or whatever. If I successfully prove that one, convincingly prove that one, this course is related with the attainment of program learning outcome, then this course can be taken to include in the curriculum. Look at course number 3. It has no connection with any PLO. What does it mean? We have to drop that courses. If you use that template exercise, you will find there are so many courses in our curricula, maybe has nothing to do with the program learning outcomes. If it has no contribution to program learning outcomes, what does it mean? It has no contribution in the achievement of PEO. If it has nothing to do with the PEO, it has no contribution with the achievement of mission of the program offering entity. So why should we include this course in the curricula? That is the way we have to justify, optimize which courses should be in the curriculum. Is it okay, Taposh? Can you follow me?
Yes, sir, we are following you.
It's okay to follow because I mentioned, I'm not singing and dancing, no, simply talking. If you need it, if your colleagues are interested to do the job properly, then maybe the talk I am offering important to them. Otherwise, it's going to bore you to some extent. That was part A of UGC curricula. Any question about that one?
Sir, already we have 2 more questions.
Yes, please.
Should we take now?
Yes, sure.
Dr. Mashukuzzaman sir asked, regarding the liberal arts courses for BBA, where should we offer them? At the beginning, end, or in between?
It depends the structuring I mentioned before, if it is related with audit course. For example, as I mentioned, students, they are going to complete the BBA program. Now they realize, I need to go through the French language. I need to go through the Mandarin, mainland China language, right? It can be in the 4th year, but if it is structured to attain the said PLOs, then it can be in the 1st year, 1st semester or 2nd semester, because that will give the foundation of well-rounded experience of taking the learning of other courses in the advanced level. So that's why it depends on the nature of course. What kinds of course you are from liberal arts? No clear-cut definition and clear-cut positioning. Is it okay, Taposh?
Yes, sir. One more question is available here. respected sir, would you consider that the North American style of OBE is applicable in South Asian countries like Bangladesh?
Concept of OB is applicable, but you have to customize, you have to make it considering your context. So blindly, I personally normally don't suggest to accept anything, whatever they have, because our intake, our stakeholders, their requirements may be somewhat different from the North American. That's why always we blindly should not accept anything, whatever they have. You have to look at your local context, requirements. Accordingly, we should use the concept of OB. OB is a very acceptable approach in many countries right now. But in education, always innovations are going on. You know, in European countries, they adopted OB. Now they are making some sort of changes in their process. The same thing happening in many other countries. But in Bangladesh, we just moving from content-based to OB. Maybe after 5 years, we will identify where we need the moderation or changes. Is that okay to understand the way I want to place it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then, any other question?
No, I'm not seeing any more questions now. We can continue, sir.
Then can we go for the part B of UGC template? Point 18, it says, structure of the curricula, roadmap to student progression. Progression, I mentioned how students will move forward. And the question you raised a few minutes ago, interdisciplinary courses should be at the beginning or middle or end, right? I said it depends what types of courses you want to offer. Look at here, prerequisite and foundation should be at the very beginning, no question about that one. Why? Look at in Bangladesh, in many private universities and very few public universities, we have English course at the very beginning. Many public universities still not recognizing the importance of linguistic courses at the very beginning of the program, right? But private university, you will find they recognize students who are coming or enrolled in their program have lapses in terms of linguistic skill. So they must have some sort of learning to match with the requirements of coming courses or advanced level courses. So should be in the prerequisite or foundation. Again, there's some common concern, common objection, complaint from all universities, faculty members. When I was talking with them, and a lot of occasions we had interaction. Even today, maybe some of you asked the same question. The students we are getting, they are not quality. Very common objection. And many of them are requesting us to work at the primary, secondary, higher secondary level so that you will have very good students. I don't know when that will happen. But point is, we are getting students with a lot of limitations. Now, when you are carrying out the responsibility to make them graduates fit for the society, then it is your obligation to identify the limitations they have when you are taking them as intake student, right? And it's the obligation of program offering entity to offer some prerequisite or foundation courses to make them mature so that they can shoulder the responsibility load of academic program. Otherwise, these limitations may create huge problems when they will go through the academic program. For example, you enrolled students cannot understand language properly. After 2 semesters, you realize he cannot accept the learning points when faculty members are discussing things in the class because they have huge limitation in listening and writing and also speaking. So those problems should be corrected at the very beginning. Many students have limitation in computational knowledge, ICT knowledge, even a lot of limitations in attitude to study with other students, study in group. Those things should be corrected at the very beginning. That's why in many countries you will find pre-program courses are there, pre-MBA courses are there to make them matured for the main program. That's why prerequisite should be at the very beginning. Then other problem in my observation, what I found in some universities, not all, some universities, they have the provision of carryover. Meaning in the first semester, you have 4 or 5 courses. Their rule is students will be promoted to second semester or in advanced level semester if they have still 1 or 2 courses failed. What happened? I found in public universities even, when students move to fourth year, they have 10, 12 backlog. Naturally, these students are the weak one, right? They cannot complete their regular courses. Now, if they have 10 or 12 backlog courses, how they can complete those successfully at the 4th year? Students, when they were promoted from first semester to second semester with the failing course, they were so happy. Now they become frustrated. How they will complete the course and the program? That's one problem. Other problem is that, what courses you are setting, one may be prerequisite of others. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, mathematics, statistics may be prerequisite of advanced level courses like research methodology or decision making courses, right? So if student failed mathematics and statistics, how they will comply with the requirements of advanced level courses? I asked in many universities where I found the problem. For example, principles of accounting, it's in the second semester, right? For example, and you have advanced accounting in the 3rd or 4th semester. The student failed in principles of accounting already in the 3rd or 4th semester, taking the advanced accounting. He passed in advanced accounting. Now the question is, if without principles of accounting, students successfully can complete the advanced accounting, what is the meaning of a course of principles of accounting? Do you need that anymore? There will be a big question, something like that. So we need to think about that one, to design the progression so that a student will move from one semester to next higher semester with the completion of prerequisite learning or learning outcome. That is actually the point I want to mention here. Is that okay to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then duration of the program, years and semesters, UGC specifically did not mention in the template, but they have some other policies, maybe for 4 years, it's 6 years. For master's, it's maybe 2 or 3 years. Looking at the policy of university and looking at the policy of UGC, you can fill it up. But template, nothing is mentioned here. Admission requirements, it's well known to everyone. When we are enrolled students for tertiary undergraduate level, their requisite qualification in Bangladesh is clearly mentioned in BNQF, higher secondary or equivalent. So you should write following the Bangladesh National Qualifications Framework. A lot of other provisions are also there. Then total minimum credit requirement for complete the program. BNQF says for 4 years bachelor degree program, it must be minimum 140 credits. For 5 years bachelor degree program, it should be minimum 160 credits. For masters, it should be 40 credits. So we must comply with those requirements. 140 is minimum. If you want to make 42, 44, 45, or 46, no problem. But should be manageable, affordable to your students, right? That's the point. Total class weeks in a year or semester, BNQF says 14 weeks. BNQF is suggesting for dual semester. UGC also suggesting for dual semester. In 6-month semester, 14 weeks for class. You can make it 15, no objection. But if you make it 13 or 12, objections will be there. Understand the point? So 14 weeks suggested by BNQF, you should or try to comply with the requirements. Minimum CGPA requirement for graduation, you decide on that. UGC template is not mentioning anything. It can be 2.5 or whatever according to your university policy, because this is somehow related with the acceptability, credibility of your university. So you should define that one intelligently or maintaining the status of your university. Maximum academic years of completion, again, nothing is mentioned in the template. You can make it, as I mentioned, for 4 years program, 6 years or 7 years. There is no hard and fast rule by UGC. Then category of courses. General education courses, this time, this is very important for all of us. We maintained a few courses, general education. In UGC template, in response to one question by my colleague, I mentioned there is no specific credit described in UGC template for general education. But for BSc accreditation, it's minimum 25% for undergraduate program and 10% for master's program by course. Why these are important? Look at here. It's the responsibility or objectives of higher education institutions to develop human resource. So to be human resource, first, we need to make them human. Only disciplinary course is not sufficient to make the qualities, characteristics with ethics, human values, and life skills. That's why interdisciplinary courses are important. We here encouraging to include some interdisciplinary courses under the caption of general education courses. Again, we have the 4th industrial revolution, and 4th industrial revolution demanding multidisciplinary approach in curricula. Interdisciplinary courses should be there. You know, the artificial intelligence, computer science, this is going to be mandatory for all kinds of academic programs, even the medical programs. And similarly, other programs are encouraged to consider courses from business and law, so that the graduates they are going to produce will have multidisciplinary or well-rounded learning experience. That's why the philosophy is here. In UGC template, nothing is mentioned which courses should be there, but it's a wide range of courses we have, but accepting the concept, look at here, the general education refers to a set of interdisciplinary courses beyond the discipline. That is important. Beyond the discipline meaning no business course can be treated as general education for business program. We have option, we can take courses from STEM, humanities, history, culture, social science, law, and many options we have. We can pick, select question. Aligning with the learning outcomes we have program and the general or graduate attributes we define. Accordingly, we should select the courses under the caption of general education. I'm just showing a few examples how the universities did and some mistakes. I'm not sure how they did it. When I was reviewing a few curricula, I found they did it. Look at here. General education courses for one undergraduate business program. They mentioned financial and managerial accounting as general education. For BBA program, financial and managerial accounting can be a GED program? It cannot be. It's not with the concept. GED, what is suggested, should be beyond the discipline. And then cost and management accounting, they again suggest this is their GED courses. Industrial and operational management, GED, again, in another course, production and operations management as regular course. Can it be? These types of mistakes done by our colleagues. And they submitted the proposal of new curriculum. And when I was reviewing, I found these types of mismatch. And to me, maybe they were not careful enough. So when we will do the job, we must be careful enough so that we will do everything very logical. And then core courses that characterize the discipline. Major course or very important course of the discipline should be as core courses. Then elective courses, courses for specialization within the discipline, note it, within the discipline. And then capstone, maybe internship, thesis, projects, portfolio, as applicable, depending on the nature of academic program and discipline. 19-year level semester term. Actually, UGC is suggesting for dual semester. You can use that. In medical program, they have year. That's why they still maintaining that one. Distribution of courses in the first year, what set of question? You can have a set of question, a student will select question from that because you have the open credit program. This is simple. First semester, second, third, accordingly, what are the courses available for the students to take? You have to maintain list separately. Then part C, description of all courses. The exercise I was requesting, this one also part of that exercise. I will request my colleagues to do some exercise. If IQAC help me, then I can pass you the slides so that will guide them to complete this exercise, which can be discussed day after tomorrow in our second session. Course code, it says BNQF suggested the International Standard Classification of Education by UNESCO. You can go to the UNESCO site and you can select the way they are defining the course code. I just use a few examples for business education. For example, whatever education we have in the globe, UNESCO divided them into 10 categories. Who among you are familiar with the UNESCO classification may know that business education and law is under 4. When you have business program, gradually it will be narrowed down. So narrow business administration, we discounted law here. So it will be 041. You may have good number of courses for business administration program. It can be 041, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And further, you may need to expand that one. For example, you have accounting and auditing here. You can have separate courses for accounting and taxation, right? You can have principles of accounting, advanced accounting, cost accounting, many. So you have to add number here to complete the numbering of courses. That is what suggested by BNQF. Maybe logics are there. Then course title, how many credits of this course? Rationale of the course. Look at here. Just silly mistake by my colleagues. Whatever I am showing you is from the submitted curriculum. They confirmed it, they submitted it for approval, and unfortunately we find these types of mistakes. The proposed curriculum is for BBA program, right? Look at here. In the rationale of the course, GED, it is mentioned that this course is designed for the professionals of computer science and engineering. What does it mean? Cut and paste, right? Please don't do that. Write with your own understanding and logic. Don't cut paste. They did it, and that's why it's, look at here. One course for BBA program, they say this is for the computer science professionals. BBA professionals, business professionals, or computer professionals are same. Okay. Then course learning outcomes, same fashion. The way we suggested to define the learning outcomes, you will define your course learning outcomes following the same pattern, same grammar. As I mentioned, verb plus S or verb plus C or 3. Whatever is suitable or possible for you, accordingly, you should define the learning outcomes of your courses. That's also part of our exercise for the next session. One more exercise This is not part of UGC curriculum, but I normally suggest to do that. This is mapping courses with resources. For strategic planning, accreditation purposes, you have to do this. For example, you have course number 1, it's connected with program learning outcome 1. You mentioned teaching learning assessment. What kinds of teaching learning assessment you want to adopt for course number 1? Accordingly, you must have some resources. Maybe physical resource, maybe human resource. It can happen. You want to offer a course, but the existing faculty you have, none of them are ready to handle the course. What can we do? Should we recruit new faculty? If possible. Other way is train 1 or 2 faculty for the course, and they will take care of the course. I can remember when in business education, we first time launched the computer, basic computer, computer in business, introduction to the computer. Some of our faculty members were responsible to take those courses who even didn't have the basic knowledge about computer. And even we didn't have any computer. How we did that? Showing something on the board. Was it a good practice? In no way. That's why I would like to suggest you course, teaching learning assessment strategy, and what kinds of resources you need. Appropriateness is important. That exercise can be done to make your program more disciplined and resourceful. Then course content. In OB, course content is not that much important. Since in Bangladesh, we are transforming from content-based to OB, that's why many of our colleagues suggested to keep it. Otherwise, our colleagues may be in difficulties. But what I would like to suggest here, please come gradually. If you start with content, then again the same shirt you will wear, maybe adding one new pocket. Does not make sense. So content will come later on. You defined your course learning outcomes. Now you think for that particular course learning outcomes, what books as a text or reading materials my students should consult. That should come as content, meaning content will depend on learning outcomes, but don't do it other way. If you make your learning outcome based on your current content, that will not serve the purposes. Now, other things we have mapping course learning outcomes with the teaching, learning and assessment strategy. I would like to suggest my colleague to follow that and to fill the template as part of our exercise. Look at here. Some COLOs are given here. Upon completion of the course, students should be able to do what? Differentiate the various forms and rules of communication. This is related with taxonomy level, I mean cognitive level analyzing, right? Teaching learning activities suggested, interactive discussion and videos study to lab. How you are going to assess? Written test and oral test. Look at here, a lot of diversity in terms of assessment tools and techniques. Same in teaching learning academy. How we did it? Depending on the nature of learning outcomes. So that is very important to ensure the appropriateness of teaching, learning and assessment with the learning outcomes. We must do that very carefully. And to do that, we need to understand options in assessment and options in teaching learning activities. Remember a few minutes ago, I was talking a few teaching learning techniques, process or method. At the same time, I was showing a little bit several options we have when we are assessing our students. Now, look at some silly mistakes again. This is another curricula submitted for approval. Look at the course content. They are not writing the learning outcomes even. Basic English literacy for office and business. Teaching learning strategies, lecture, discussion, group works, right? Look at here, lab. Again, lab class, But teaching learning is lecture discussion group also. Same. Can it be acceptable? For all kinds of topics and learning outcomes, you cannot have same teaching learning practices. When you have the same teaching learning practices, it's always gonna objectionable. Teaching learning and assessment techniques should follow the learning outcomes, and diversity is very desired. Diversity is highly expected. So accordingly, we should do that. The last part of curricular template of UGC, D. Nothing specifically mentioned in UGC template, and these things should come from your university policy, but that policy must be approved in academic council and syndicate as applicable for your university. Grading and evaluation, grading scale is UGC suggested one grading scale. If you want to adapt that one, you can adapt, but you have to adapt with the acceptance of your academic council and syndicate. Grades, grade point, how it will be calculated, course withdrawal, incomplete, retake, grade improvement, dropout. How things will happen, you have to specify it here before submission to the University Grants Commission for approval of your curriculum. Today, I'm not going too far because it's already 9, and I'm worried about your patience. And I think before you lose patience, I must stop talking here. And this is one of the characteristics of good speaker, they know when to stop, right? So I want to get that credibility. That's why I should not talk too much unless you have any specific question and relevant question. Suppose.
Sir, we have 3 more questions. One question is from Abdul Rahman sir. He asked that, does the 14-week semester as suggested by UGC include the exam weeks or only teaching weeks?
No, exam week, including everything. For example, 6 months, class, PL, preparatory leave, exam, publication result, everything within that 6 months. That's why 14 weeks for class, minimum 14 weeks. If you want to make it, you can make it 15 or 16. That's up to your department, but minimum 14.
Thank
Is
you,
it okay?
Okay. Second question is, in around 2018, the UGC published some standard syllabi or curricula for different programs to be followed in preparing curricula, which was not in OB format.
That was not OB. Actually, those guidelines developed in 2016. But they circulated that one in 17, 18, even it was in 19, I found many universities are following that one. But since 2020, UGC is suggesting to transform the same curricula into OB following their template. That's very clear message. So that means the guiding rules or policies they had before, it's no longer acceptable in the face of new preparation, that's OB curriculum template. Okay, Taposh?
Sir, Abdul Rahman sir also added that, is it mandatory to follow those?
Somebody asked me, does it include internship research thesis, or internship or research thesis will be excluded from this?
Everything included with that 140. So if you have any research component, actually that's what course-based program, right? But if you have 3 credit, 6 credit research, you can include that here. Even internship included with this 140.
Okay.
Minimum 140, right? If needed, you can make it more than that. For example, in engineering programs in Bangladesh, already many universities, they have 150, 160, already they have.
Yeah, I have another very small clarification. Teaching learning, you mentioned the teaching learning strategy and evaluation tools.
Yes.
Could you please differentiate again? Just explain.
Day after tomorrow, we'll have a little more discussion on that one. Since we have one exercise, at least I'm planning to give an exercise. That's why I touched a little on that one. Professor Nozul, you know, the learning outcomes we have, if you want to attain that learning outcomes, you blindly cannot adopt any teaching learning activities. Appropriateness is very important. For example, if you want to make students to learn how to swim,
Yeah.
it cannot be done by lecture. Even as you know, we are from business discipline. If you want to make your students ethically standard, you cannot make it only with lecture. Leadership skills can be developed. Can we develop with lecture? We cannot develop leadership with lecture. So we need to identify appropriate teaching, learning, and assessment tools at the same time, so that we can check whether students have the ethical standard, whether students have the leadership, OB, and how it can be with them. Maybe organizing something, maybe activity-based, right? Maybe co-curricular activities, some cases. That's why this time, even from BSc, we are suggesting to have planned and balanced co-curricular activities, because it is accepted many learning outcomes we need for our graduates, which cannot be developed, cannot be attained only by classroom activities. That's why
In
when
fact,
you have 140, you can include many things there. Yes, no.
Yeah, my question was, in fact, the use of word strategy.
Yeah.
Teaching learning strategy.
That's part of strategy. You know, the methods you have, let's say case method, right? How you are going to conduct that one?
Yeah.
We sometimes use the words very simultaneously: techniques, strategy, methods, right? Actually, everything refers what kinds of teaching learning practices you want to adopt to attain particular learning outcomes. That's the point, actually. So what words we are using, we'll consider later on.
Thank you. So any other question from the faculty members, or any queries or any observation?
Dear faculty members, you can verbally ask questions to our resource
Now floor
person.
is open.
Yes, for today.
For
Tomorrow
today.
we'll start from here. We have course outline and course file. A few things are there, including the assessment and teaching learning. Hopefully we'll share tomorrow or day after tomorrow, next session.
I think, Anand, you have given an exercise, right?
Yeah, can we share that one?
Yeah. Can you please show it?
Yes. I need cooperation from our colleagues, particularly from the IQAC, or who are moderating the program, to help me so that we can use that exercise properly. Okay. Let me find out the file first. It's very simple exercise. The points we shared with our colleagues, just make use of that. You know, since this is in Zoom platform online, if you don't go through the exercise, we won't be able to do the job when needed to do for our departments. That's why I'm encouraging, requesting to go through the exercise. For example, this is what we discussed, right?
Okay, yeah.
Identifying the needs,
Yeah.
graduate attributes, PO and POLO. My colleagues are present here. Can you do the exercise or filling the template? Identify a few needs, the way I was talking about, some from government side, maybe society, maybe employer, internationalization, what needs we have, and convert that needs into graduate attributes, the way we discussed, and what your program wants to do, so that students will have that attributes. And if they have that, how the program learning outcomes will be phrased. Is it difficult? Can you do that?
I think our faculty member can do that.
Fine.
But it will require some time.
Yeah, full day they have tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then when you have the graduate profile, now please show me with mapping which graduate profile fall under which category of learning domain as suggested in framework, so that we can say the graduate profile and program learning outcomes we considered, accommodated all the 4 domains suggested in our qualifications framework. Simply mapping.
Okay.
You have maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 GA. Which one fall under which category? Which one is fundamental? Which one is social? Which one is thinking? Which one is personal, right? Just placement, cut and copy. Then description of the courses. All the courses, I would like to request to make one course from program. Course title, credits, level, in which level? First semester, second semester, or fourth semester, where? Rationale of the course learning outcomes. I want to see my colleagues are already capable to define the learning outcomes using the framework I mentioned, action verb, condition, or verb, standard. Then the typical part is mapping. This one may be a little bit complicated without complete understanding of alternative teaching learning approaches and assessment. Very difficult to do that, but we must try. This is the template. Suppose, can we suggest or request our colleagues to do the exercise? As much as
Yeah, we are requesting our colleagues to do the exercise.
if they try to do that, that will make them to do when they need to develop the curricula for their department, right? Otherwise,
they will have to develop very soon. So
actually we have.
this is the right time to do the exercise.
Yeah. We have to do that.
Okay.
So maybe I will send it to.
Okay, you can send it to me. Send it to me.
Do I have your email address?
Yes, I think you have. I forwarded one, or I can give it to you now.
Please. Then I will forward it, and you please pass it to IQAC or share with the colleagues, so that tomorrow at least 2, 3, 4, 5 we should share or give some feedback how they did the job. Right? We'll display, and all of us will look at it, and then we'll try to make some comments for further improvement or to make it perfect as much as possible.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Professor Nazrul?
Yes, I think it's all right. Yeah, Taposh.
Thank you very much, sir, for your precious and extraordinary speech. Again, thank you for the excellent and informative question and answer session. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Nazrul Islam, Pro-Vice Chancellor, Northern University, Bangladesh, to present his precious speech in front of us.
Thank you very much. After this clear and what should I say, smart, specific, measurable, achievable, reliable, timely lecture. After this smart lecture, I have not many things to speak up after this session. Our Vice Chancellor already informed me, called me that it was really an excellent session. It was highly value-adding for us, for our faculty members. And now we are, in fact, developing our OB outcome-based curriculum. We are now working on it. So at this moment, at this time, this value-adding lecture of Professor S.M. Kabir will highly be useful for us. And we will also have the scope to ask question on 19th, day after tomorrow. Yes. So that if I would suggest all our faculty members to do the exercise that has given by Professor Kabir, so that if you have any difficulty or if you feel or find any problem, you can raise that problem in the workshop on 19th of this month at 6:30. And I think Professor Kabir also will show at least one exercise, one example in next workshop. Example, first to last, one example by taking one course, one example. Then they will understand the sequence. In next workshop, if you can show these connections, then I hope that our faculty members will be benefited from this example.
I will show some, because if we try to show everything, then it
Only one example. One example. And we have learned a lot of things because we know that the Bangladesh Accreditation Council has been formed by Bangladesh government, and in near future we shall have to accredit our programs. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to run the program to admit the students in different programs of our university. So Professor S.M. Kabir is now working there in Accreditation Council. So we also learned some important aspects of accreditation criteria, accreditation criteria and standards. We also learned the OB criteria, which are suggested by Bangladesh University Grants Commission. With this, I, on my behalf and on behalf of Northern University Bangladesh, extend our cordial thanks to Kabir and our colleagues and the participants who have given, I think it is already 3 hours, a long time for this workshop. And this workshop is recorded. We will make it available to our faculty members. If you would like to see it later on, then you can see and you can clarify your conflict. So with this, we are going to close here today. Thank you all. See you on 19 at 6:30. Thank you, Professor S.M. Kabir.
Because,
Heartiest thanks to you, sir.